All right. Welcome back to the Branson broadcast. We're continuing our series on viable worldviews related to origins, at least. And in the first couple of sessions, we talked about evolution proper, the view held by naturalists, and how likely that is to happen. Today, we want to talk about, well, I don't know if they call themselves now Old Earth Creationists or Day Age Creationists, the Theistic Evolutionists. And we're going to throw in the gap theory too there, because they all share basically the same philosophy and the same error, in my humble opinion. So what do they mostly believe? Well, we're just going to call them theistic evolutionists for ease of reference, I guess. The idea is that since evolution has been proved to be true, in spite of my previous two videos and thousands of others, since evolution has been proved, they need, or they believe that they have found the way to reconcile science and the Bible, right? And so I guess the idea is that, well, if you remember from the first two videos, I mentioned the impossibility of the existence of the universe, because nothing can create something. In other words, something does not come from nothing. It needs something. So the impossibility of the existence of the universe, the impossibility of life coming from non-life, and the whole thing about the advancement, the improvement of life, the augmentation of genetic material. So apparently what they do, these theistic evolutionists, is that they believe, or they posit, that yes, all of these things cannot happen on their own, but they believe in God, and therefore it's God who is causing these things to happen. Of course, they would believe that he created the universe, but I guess he created that microscopic pinpoint of material and then made it explode, and then directed the quarks and everything to come together as elements, to come together as, amino acids and whatever. And then he caused all of that, and then he made, or caused, the first living organism to be formed out of this magical process. And then remember, we said we talked about the increase in genetic information and how that had to happen, and there's no way that can happen by random processes. So I guess a theistic evolutionist would say that, well, no, I mean, obviously it won't happen on its own, but we have an all-powerful God, and he's directing, he's making sure that all of those things happen. Okay, well, as far as that goes, I guess it's okay. There's a problem, though, and that's what I mentioned earlier with the philosophical, or actually it's a theological problem. And that's what we find in the Bible says clearly and explicitly that the wages of sin is death, right? So, Adam and Eve sinned, and then death showed up in the world. Well, but if you accept the evolutionary timescale, you've got, billions of years of death, I think. Now, maybe what they say is, well, the Bible, or that refers to humans dying. Animals, they're not, they don't have a soul, so maybe they're talking about soul death or whatever. Well, then my question is, or the question is, where was that time where they changed from being, basically a descendant of a monkey or whatever, Australopithecines or whatever they call it, when is the moment that they changed from being an animal to being a human? Was it their self-awareness? And is that something that happened in a single day? Or did that take a few years? And during those few years, maybe some of them died. In any case, either way you cut that, I don't think it's theologically correct. Because prior to the sin of eating the fruit, whatever it was in the Garden of Eden, nothing died. Now, when the Bible talks about life and death, really, I think mostly it's talking about there's a place, and I'll talk about this when I get to my personal view, a later video, but I believe that when the Bible refers to life, it's referring to things that have the breath of life. In other words, things that have lungs, etc. And just to give a ridiculous example, if you pull a carrot out of the earth, clean it off and eat it, well, I think we can say that the carrot is dead, right? But that's not quite the same thing. So obviously some things died, but death in the biblical sense is things that have the breath of life. That will come in, that will be very important, by the way, when we talk about the flood, when we get there, one of my favorite topics. So I'm looking forward to that. But the idea that we had literally millions of years of dinosaurs and birds and other land creatures dying, even though they had the breath of life, but there was no curse. I mean, the first chapter of the Bible says, oh, this was good, this was good. And at the end, this was very good. But all of these animals are dying? I don't see how that's really a bonus. I don't know how a theistic evolutionist accepts that. And I don't accept it. So, I mean, if any of these Old Earth creationists watch this, they're probably going to crucify me in the comments, but I don't accept it. I don't accept death before sin. And for them to sin, they have to be aware. They have to know that what they're doing is wrong, or at least be tricked into doing it. And it's not, for me, it's not a valid thing. Now, there is another variant of this theory called the gap theory. And for this, I need my specs because I need to read a verse. It actually comes from Genesis 1. Of course, everybody. It seems like even people who don't believe the Bible know the first verse of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Verse 2, and the earth was without form and void. Well, this gap theory is the idea that between verses 1 and 2, let's say God created something in verse 1. Then in verse 2, they say the earth became formless and void. In other words, he destroyed it because there was sin or something. Well, it's still the same problem. Nobody sinned. Why did God destroy it? Was he practicing? Does God need to practice making universes? Let me tell you, somebody needs to practice making YouTube videos, but I mean, God is perfect. He could do it from the very beginning. So again, it's not a viable theory, primarily because it accepts the worldview basically of evolutionists, which I don't think is valid. And then it tries to make this super distinction between, I guess, fully aware humans versus their ancestors, which were not quite there in any case. It's I don't think it's a good theory. So next time, I hope to get into the good stuff, which will be my view of how and why, and well, a lot of things about how the Earth came to be, and maybe a few surprising things about it as well. So, a lot shorter today. So I hope that's agreeable to you. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.